I've got an old computer here, an old laptop, which has been sitting in the garage for quite a while. And when I went and I got it out, I opened up the bag that it sits in, and it literally had like cobwebs and dust on the bag to the extent that I was like dusting my hands off. And I was like, I'm not going to take the bag inside because it's way too dirty. That's how long this laptop's been sitting in the garage. I used to use this laptop about 2 or 3 years ago, but then it just kind of got a little bit too old. It was running Windows XP, and I got a new computer, so this one just kind of went to the garage, and I haven't gotten rid of it yet, which is a good thing because I'm going to show you some cool stuff using this computer. And some of the stuff you're going to learn in this video. This video is going to cover an amazing essential computer skill, and you're going to learn how to install a new operating system on a computer. And we're going to install Linux on this computer. It used to have Windows XP on it, but Linux is a free open source operating system, and open source means that people developed it collectively without the guidance of any overseeing corporation. It's just people who are really into writing software, programmers who got together online and said, let's create a really cool operating system together. And they made it, and it's free, and you could download it and you can use it. And I've heard it runs a lot lighter with a lot less overhead, so it doesn't tax your computer's resources as much. It runs a lot lighter with a lot less of an overhead than Windows software. So I'm going to install Linux on here and see what happens. And some of the stuff we're going to learn, one of the first things we're going to learn is we're going to learn about disk partitions. And disk partitions, so we have the actual physical hard disk drive, right? So if we look for a hard disk drive and check out the images, here is the actual physical hard disk drive. Well, that's just one physical hard disk drive. And we could partition this hard disk drive so that we could use different areas on here for different data. And when we partition a hard disk drive, the computer will actually now see this one physical drive as having several different drives in a way, right? So when I go to the logical representation of a partitioned hard drive, I might see something like this, where there's two drives represented logically in my computer, but the actual physical drive is just one drive. And so partitions allow us to create separate areas, like partitions on a hard disk drive, where different types of data can be stored. And partitions can be useful for storing things like the restore partition. So computers today usually come with a restore partition if you bought a brand name computer. And if you search for your brand name computer and the model and then restore partition, you will get results for this is what you need to do to access the restore partition. And on the restore partition is stored all of the original software that your computer came with. So, it doesn't matter how long you've been using your computer. If you ever want to hit the reset button and have your computer revert to the way it was the day it came out of the box, you just type in the brand, the model number, and restore partition, and follow the instructions for accessing that restore partition, where on the hard disk drive there's an area where all of the original software has been stored. And when you tell it to restore your computer to its original state, it'll take that software and reinstall it on the hard disk drive. So everything's just like it was the day it came out of the box. So I'm telling you that just so you can learn about partitions. And, here are some visual representations of partitions, right? Like maybe somebody partitioned their hard disk drive so that they have data files in one area and program files in another. Maybe somebody partitioned their hard disk drive so that to the computer, when they look in Windows Explorer, right? When they look in Windows Explorer, they see a couple of drives there, even though it's one physical drive. So they see drive C, D, E, right? So they have different partitions. Or maybe somebody partitioned their hard drive, here's just another image of the exact same thing actually, right? Where, you have a drive C and a drive D, where different stuff is stored in different areas on the partition. Why would you want to partition your hard disk drive? There are benefits and disadvantages to it, and you can read about them here at Wikipedia by searching for disk partitioning. But one of the reasons you might want to do it is, you want to store the original software in an area. That's why Dell does it, so that I could always go back to that restore partition area and access the original software. All right, so let's get started installing Ubuntu, which is a version of Linux. And to get here, I just searched for download Linux, and Ubuntu is one of the versions of Linux, which I've heard about, and I know somebody who's installed it. Actually, a former student named D installed it on one of my office computers. So let's try installing it on this computer and see what happens. So I come to Ubuntu, and very appropriately, the first page, it says you want to download Ubuntu, and I've got two choices: latest features, extended support. I think I'm going to stay away from the latest features and go with extended support because, if it's a little bit older, it's version 12.04 versus 13.04, it means it probably has less bugs. And I'm working with a machine which is going to have resources like, limited resources. And so I'm going to go with something that's, a little bit been out there a little bit longer, has less bugs in it, and my limited resources, limited RAM, limited processing power, limited clock speed on this laptop right here might be able to handle that older version a little bit better than the more brand spanking new version that's just come out. And it asked me if I want the 32-bit or the 62-bit version. And I know since I have an older machine that this machine is a 32-bit word size. And so I'm going to not use 64-bit. The processor isn't a 64-bit processor. So I'm going to click Ubuntu 12.04, getting the 32-bit version, and let's see what happens. So here it's taking me to a page where it's asking me, hey, what should we do more? And then as I move this over, like I'm voting for them to do that more, it raises the price of what I'm wanting to donate, what I'd be willing to donate to Ubuntu so they can continue making a Linux thing. So this is all by donation. It's asking for a contribution. I'm going to say, I'm a cheapskate, take me to the download. And then it says, thank you for downloading Ubuntu desktop. And I've got a little download thing coming down here, 707 megabytes, 33 minutes left, 30 minutes left, 29 minutes left. So it is downloading. Okay, so Ubuntu has finished downloading. I can see down here it's finished downloading. I'm going to click that little button right there and choose Show in Folder. And right there is Ubuntu. And I could go to Detail View, Details, and tells me it's a disk image file. And it's an ISO type of file extension. Well, what I do with that now, the thing I need to do with it now is I've got a DVD here. And I'm looking on the back of the DVD just to see if there's any of that rough sort of, instead of completely smooth, if there's a little roughness beneath the surface there, which would tell me this DVD's been written to. And I don't see any of that. So this DVD is ready to go. So I'm going to drop this DVD into my DVD burner in my computer. Voila. And I need to burn this file to disk. So an ISO is a disk image file. And when I burn this file to disk, it's kind of like a compressed file, like a zipped file. And when I burn this image to disk, it'll make it a disk, which has all of the files on it of the operating system Linux, the Ubuntu version of it. And then I'll be able to take that disk and stick it in this new computer, this old computer, change the boot order by which the computer looks for an operating system, change the boot order to the DVD drive. Thankfully, it's a DVD drive and not just a CD drive. And it will then see the Ubuntu operating system and ask me to install that, if I want to install that. So that's the game plan. So I'm going to now burn files to disk. How do you want to use this disk? With a CD or DVD player? And it's asking me, okay, well, here's the disk to burn to. So I'm going to just kind of minimize this window like that, and then grab this window and minimize it by hitting that little button up there in the top right corner. And now I could have these two side by side. So here are my downloads. Here's my DVD drive, and it says drag files to this folder to add them to the disk. So I'm going to drag that file to that folder, and you can see the little plus sign next to my cursor. It means it's, do I want to add that file to this area? So I'm going to drop it. And it says I have a file waiting to be burned to disk right here. So I'm ready to burn that to disk. So what I do, I click this burn to disk right here, and it's asking me for, what I want to call it. Sure, that's fine. How fast I want to record it, that's fastest. And click next. And now it's burning that file to disk. So interestingly, there's a learning curve here. After I burned this file to disk, and you can see there's now zeros and ones on it, when I went to look at this DVD and opened it up, it still had the ISO image. That was all that was burned to the DVD, and it actually needs to unpack the image. So I'm going to try burning this to DVD one more time. I'm going to right-click the file and choose Burn Disk Image. And now Windows Disk Image Burner. Hopefully this will unpack that zipped ISO file and burn the folder structure to make a bootable disk. And do I want to verify the disk after burning? Sure, why not? So now I'm going to try that one and see what happens. So now when I check the DVD that just burned, I click on my DVD drive to look at the DVD that is in there. I see the folder structure for the operating system, which was very different than looking at just this file, which is what I was seeing the last time I burned it. So looks like we're ready to go, and I'm going to transfer to this computer so that we can film my other computer more clearly. We will install the operating system. Okay, we're now ready to install the operating system, and you can also see right here that disk has kind of that ring right there where it's sort of a different color. It's not quite as smooth and shiny, and that's where the zeros and ones got written, spiraling out from the inside, so it really didn't take up much space on that disk. There's my camera. Alright, so I'm going to turn this computer on, and then as it boots, I'm going to watch. Wow, was I off screen? I'm going to turn this computer on, and then as it boots, I'm going to watch to see what I need to do to enter setup. So let's take a look at that. So I'm looking in the corners of the computer, and I'm thinking it's dang, it just went, is F2. So I could just hold this button down and look in the top right corner, and it says, what, F2 setup, and now it says preparing to enter setup. So I pressed F2. And we're going into setup. And please type in the primary administrator password and hit enter. This computer is protected by password. All right, well, let's try something. Will that work? No. Let's try another one. Yay, there we go. So now we are in setup. So I need to change the boot order. And all of these setups look different, but I see here I have page 1 of 6 right up there. I don't know if you can see that. And then there's some instructions down here. Basically it says use your arrow keys. And that's where I could change my system clock. And I could go up and down. Alt-P, change fields. Alt-P to change page. So Alt-P. And here's my boot order right here. And right now it's internal hard disk drive, and I need it to go first to the DVD. So these arrows to move up and down, no. These to go up and down, there. Well, let's try a plus or a minus, shift plus, no. This category controls operating system file search, disk drives library change. Up or D, press up or D to move device up or down, so I'm going to hit up. So I just changed it to look to the DVD first when it boots. There we go. I don't know if you can see that. Now it's going to look to the DVD first when it boots, and then the internal hard drive second. And I'm going to save this by hitting escape. Escape to exit. So hit escape on my keyboard. Do you want to save the changes? Save changes and exit. And before I do that, I'm going to put the DVD in so it actually will boot to the DVD. So got my DVD drive open, put the DVD in, and save changes and exit. And now, please select the operating system to start. Well, I just heard the DVD kind of spin. It's going to Windows, so I'm just going to hit power. Who cares? Just power off. If you hold power down for an extended period of time, it'll just go all the way off and restart from the beginning. So hopefully now it is booting from. Got to enter the BIOS password again. And hopefully this time it will boot from the DVD. I hear the DVD. Yeah, so we're looking good. We got something interesting down here, which is looking different than last time. And this is the first step in the process. And I will follow a series of screen prompts, certainly, as I go through this. But I'm also hoping I come to some place that talks about partitions, so I can show you deleting partitions and creating partitions. We have Ubuntu coming online. How cool is that? So now I'm at a window where it's asking me to try Ubuntu or install Ubuntu. And I'm going to go for install. If I could get over there. So my mouse is oh, there we go. There, my mouse is working. And install Ubuntu. And now it's asking me You know, for best results, please ensure that this computer has 4.4 gigabyte hard drive space, is plugged into power source, and is connected to the internet. So I'm not connected to the internet. So I could try connecting to the internet right now by going behind my computer and grabbing this Ethernet cable. And whether or not it will, you know, if the cable's plugged in, that's one thing. But even with the cable plugged in, it still might not connect. Sorry, this video is a little jostly. So I'm going to plug in right back here. There we go. So hopefully it'll still recognize that. But you know, who knows if the computer's software is there to recognize the internet even still. So there we go. Wired connection is established and is connected to the internet, has a check mark next to it. And then it also asks me, do I want to download updates while installing? And I'm going to check download updates while installing. And now I'm ready to go. There's also some third-party software. Do I want that? Yes. And I'm going to click continue. And now we're at the next window where it asks me if I want to install Ubuntu alongside Windows, NT 2000 XP, or if I want to replace the Windows. And it says, warning, this will delete all of your Windows programs, documents, photos, music, and any other files, or something else. You can create and resize partitions yourself or choose multiple partitions for Ubuntu. So I'm going to go to this one where we can actually see what's going on with partitions. And then click continue. And here it shows me my partitions on this computer. So I'm just going to click all of my partitions. Can I click that one? And I'm going to choose delete. Nope, doesn't let me delete. And let's try this one. It tells me that the file type is NTFS, right, which we've learned about. So I'm going to delete that partition just for hoots and hollers, see what happens. Now I have free space. And I'm going to add a partition, new partition. It asks me to create a partition. New, it's going to be a primary partition. Beginning, use as, I don't know what that is, but sure, let's go with the default. And I'm just going to click OK because I don't know any of that stuff. And now instead of NTFS, it has some sort of type ext4. So maybe that's a file system that Ubuntu uses. And device for bootloader installation, sure. All right, I think I'm done. So I'm going to click install now. No root file systems is fine. Please correct this from the partitioning menu. Okay. Let's try right here if it'll install it there. Install now. Maybe I'd have that one selected. No root file system is defined. Please select this from the partitioning menu. Change. FAT32, FAT16. So I'm not sure what to choose here. And this is going to be a question for Google. So the problem is asking me is no root file systems defined, so I'm going to go to Google.
Yes, they named it after him.
Okay, so basically what that said was right here, under the mount point, I need to do that. Just choose that one and click OK. Don't know why. And let's see if that works now. So I'm going to do it right here. And install now and see if I get any errors. And you're not selecting any partitions for use as a swap space. So that error also had something, the little thing I just read about, had something about this. Enabling swap space is recommended so that the system can make better use of the available physical memory and so that it behaves better when physical memory is scarce. You may experience installation problems if you do not have enough physical memory. If you do not go back to the partitioning menu and assign a swap partition, the installation will continue without swap space. So I go back Well, I don't see anything for swap space. Continue. There we go. Voila. All right, so now I have Ubuntu, a version of Linux being installed on my laptop. We've seen the partitions. We've also seen how to install a new operating system on a computer. The last thing I want to point out about partitions is if you go to Start and right-click your computer and then choose Manage, takes you to this area where if you click on Disk Management right here, you could actually see what drives are connected to your computer and what the different, partition information is. So here you can see 2 partitions on this disk, and that's my C disk, my C drive. And then this one here, my Seagate drive, is that one, and it has 1 partition. And you could right-click and get different options for doing stuff here in disk management. And there's also other computer management things there. So just kind of cool to know about. I've never really ever used this area, but something to know about. Yeah, so that's partitions and installing a new operating system, an essential computer skill.